Chapter 5. The Sign of the Beaver. Day after day he kept remembering the bee tree. He and his father had discovered it weeks ago. High in a tree at the swampy edge of the pond they had called Loon Pond. The bees were buzzing in and out of an old woodpecker hole. Matt had thought they were wild bees, but his father had said no. There were no bees at all in America till the colonists brought them from England. This swarm must have escaped from one of the river towns. Bees were better left alone, Pa said. He felt he could scarcely endure another meal of plain fish. He was hungry for a bit of something tasty. Knowing so well his fondness for molasses, his mother had persuaded them to carry that little keg all the way to Maine when his father would rather have gone without. She would have smiled to see him running his finger around and round the empty keg like a child and licking off the last drop the bear had missed. Now he couldn't stop thinking about that honey. It would be worth a sting or two just to have a taste of it. There couldn't be much danger in going up that tree and taking just a little, a cupful perhaps, that the bees would never miss. One morning he made up his mind to try, come what might. It was an easy tree to climb, with branches as neatly placed as the rungs of a ladder. The bees did not seem to notice as he pulled himself higher and higher. Even when his head was on a level with the hole, they flew lazily in and out, not paying him any mind. The hole was small, not big enough for his hand and the spoon he had brought with him. Peering in, he could just glimpse far inside the golden mass of honeycomb. The bark all round the hole was rotted and crumbling. Cautiously he put his fingers on the edge and gave a slight tug. A good-sized piece of bark broke off into his hand. With it came the bees. With a furious buzzing, they came pouring from the broken hole. The humming grew into a roar, like a great wind. Matt felt a sharp pain on his neck, then another and another. The angry creatures swarmed along his hands and bare arms, and his hair, and on his face. How he got down off of that tree, he never remembered. Water! If he could reach water, he could escape them. Bellowing and waving his arms, he plunged towards the pond. The bees were all around him. He could not see through the whirling cloud of them. The boggy ground sucked at his feet. He pulled one foot clear out of his boot, went stumbling over sharp roots to the water's edge, and flung himself forward. His foot caught in a fallen branch, and he wrenched it clear. Dazed with pain, he sank down into icy shelter of the water. He came up choking. Just above the water, the angry bees circled. Twice more he ducked his head and held it down until his lungs were bursting. He tried to swim out into the pond, but his feet were tangled in dragging weeds. When he tried to jerk them free, a fierce pain ran up his leg, and he went under again, thrashing his arms wildly. Then something lifted him. His head came up from the water, and he gulped air into his aching lungs. He felt strong arms around him. Half conscious, he dreamed that his father was carrying him, and he did not wonder how this could be. Presently, he knew he was lying on dry ground. Though his eyelids were swollen almost shut, he could see two figures bending over him. Unreal, half-naked figures with dark faces. Then, as his wits began to return to him, he saw that they were Indians, an old man and a boy. The man's hands were reaching for his throat, and in a panic, Matt tried to jerk away. "Not move," a deep voice ordered. "Bee needles have poison, must get out." Matt was too weak to struggle. He could not even lift his head. Now that he was out of the cold water, his skin seemed to be on fire from head to toe, yet he could not stop shivering. He had to lie helpless while the old man's hands moved over his face and neck and body. Gradually he realized that they were gentle hands, probing and rubbing at one tender spot after another. His panic began to die away. He could still not think clearly. Things seemed to keep fading before he could quite grasp them. He could not protest when the man lifted him again and carried him like a baby. It did not seem to matter where they were taking him, but shortly he found himself lying on his own bed in his own cabin. He was alone. The Indians had gone. He lay too tired and sore to figure out how he had come to be there, knowing only that the nightmare of whirling bees and choking water was past, and that he was safe. Some time passed. Once again the Indian was bending over him, holding a wooden spoon against his lips. He swallowed in spite of himself, even when he found it was not food, but some bitter medicine. He was left alone again, and presently he slept.